We learned yesterday of the passing of Paddy Hart. Former Minister of State and long-serving TD, Dinny McGinley, joins me on the programme. Firstly, Deputy, my condolences on the loss of a friend and a colleague.
Yes, indeed, a very good friend and a very good colleague who was a political mentor to me for many, many years. And initially, Greg, I would like to extend my deepest and sincerest condolences to Rosaline, Paddy's wife, to his entire family, 5 boys, 4 girls, in-laws, and lots of grandchildren. It's a sad loss for them all. Paddy has been with us for so long, but when it does come to the end, it's always very sad and it's always a shock. So my sympathy to them all.
And you can trace your career right back to an engagement you had by letter from Paddy.
Yes, I knew Paddy before I ever went into politics. I knew him as a TD way back in the 70s when I was just a teacher here in Gweedore. And I remember in September 1980, I was just the principal of the local school here in Bunbeg. And one day, a letter arrived at the school for me and an Oireachtas envelope, which was very unusual in those days. We didn't get Oireachtas letters very often. Today, they're coming out like confetti, as you probably know, but in those days, so opened the letter, and there was a nice handwritten letter from Paddy. Incidentally, I still have it. I read it out there not too long ago at a function in Donegal town, suggesting that I should consider allowing my name to go forward at a convention in 1980 for a pending by-election here in Donegal due to the death of the late Joe Brennan. And, of course, I had absolutely no intention whatsoever, so he invited me to meet him, which I did, up in Raffo, in the Diamond in Raffo, and we had a long chat, and we gave it a lot of thought, and eventually, after about a month or so, I said, well, why not? Maybe in 20 years' time, if I didn't allow my name to go forward, I might regret it, so we'll give it a chance anyway. And that was the beginning of my involvement with elected politics in 1980. About a year and a half afterwards, I was invited to the Dáil, and I had the privilege of being in the Dáil for 16 years with Paddy. We were always neighbours there on the second floor. We were in adjacent offices, and I spent as much time with Paddy in the after hours as I did in my own office. And he was a great political advisor and mentor to me, and I was always great. We had a great relationship. Paddy was from North East, I was from South West, and I admired him very, very much in the work he was involved in, Greg.
And you've had such a long career in the Dáil yourself, and Paddy already had 20 years on you by the time that you took your seat. It goes to show the longevity of his career.
Well, between the two of us, let's put it this way, Greg, between Paddy and myself, our combined career in Dáil would have been 70 years. Paddy was there for 36 years, 61 to 97. I was there in my 35th year. And yes, people say that doesn't happen anymore, but it was a great privilege to have been there and to have known Paddy and see what he was involved in and the work that he undertook. Not alone did he do the constituency work that every TD, every deputy who wants to be there for that at the time must be involved in, keep an eye on everything, but he broke out of that sort of corral or boundary and got involved in so many other things. I didn't know, but I know he told me a few times that before in the 60s, I think, he was involved. I'm sure there's people out there who would probably vouch for this, that he was involved. He was a founding member of what was then called the Donegal Association for the Mentally Handicapped. And then he went into the Dáil in the 60s then, and when things started in Northern Ireland, he was a spokesman for Fine Gael in Northern Ireland. And he came out with a revolutionary document, if I can, maybe it's not the right word, but a document that said the way to deal with difficult with Northern Ireland is to extend the hand of friendship to the people there, and to try and bring communities together. And he spent a good part of his life trying to achieve that. In those days, it wasn't, it wasn't the political philosophy of hardly any party down here. Even Fine Gael was saying, United Ireland or nothing. But today, thankfully, every political party, bar none down here, would be believers in the document or in the philosophy that was first promoted by Paddy Hart and then by Gareth Fitzgerald. And I remember he was at that office on the first or second floor outside the lift, and in that office, the idea of having the Ulster Peace Park was born and started off there. And Paddy took this very serious, that something should be done to recognise the contribution of the thousands and thousands of Irish men from all political persuasions and on both sides of the border who were in the First World War.
And how was that received initially? I don't know.
I must say that there was a lot of scepticism, all right, from official quarters, to be quite honest with you. Then, of course, Glenn spent a lot of time in that office at the time. Yeah, we were all young people in those days, and Glenn and Paddy got together, and he cajoled Taoiseach, ministers for foreign affairs. He then got on to I remember they used to have a banker in there, John Gilligan. I think he was a director of some bank in Dublin, and then they got on to Foss, and eventually, after a lot of work, he achieved his aim of having a suitable memorial in Flanders for those who died or those who participated in the war. I had the privilege of being there on a number of occasions. The Ulster Peace Park. You have the round tower there. And the stones, by the way, the stonework or the stones that with which that tower was was taken out from Ireland. I think it's from a workhouse somewhere in the Midlands or at Sloan or perhaps Mullingar. He got Malachy Sherlock was the Director General of Force at the time, another Northern Ireland man, Derry, and he was on board. And I think Force had a major part in the building of the Round Tower. And it is there as a lasting memorial to those who fought there, those who particularly died there, and it will be a very important part of Paddy Hart's legacy.
Right,
and then
achievement.
A tremendous achievement. And when we're all gone, and probably you'll be left there and will be forgotten, people will remember Paddy, and that's going to be a very important part of his legacy. He had the reputation of being able to drive to any address in Belfast. And the Nationalist and the Loyalist, I was able to go to any house there without the guidance of anyone. And he used to bring Gareth Fitzgerald and Peter Barry and other people up there, and he was so involved. And he was ahead of his time, indeed, as I say. I remember now poppy days and all that sort of thing. He had absolutely no difficulty in supporting that. I mean, it's accepted now that we have our own poppy down here, and people wear it even in Dáil and Armistice Day and all that sort of thing. He was a pioneer. He was ahead of his time. He was involved in so many such issues. And but these are some of the great things that will last.
Yeah. And we're only scratching the surface too, Denny. But listen,
we're only scratching the surface, and thankfully he lasted, and his contribution has really been recognised.
Yes.
By all. He got honours. He got a European Person of the Year. Fair play to the Donegal Association. He was the Person of the Year for the Donegal Association.
2008, then an OBE as well, of course.
And an OBE, indeed. I just missed it, but I know it was presented by the British Embassy in Dublin, and honorary doctorates and so on. So Paddy Hart, when he was a TD for 36 years, he was just a minister or a minister of state or Minister of State.
That's right. Yep.
Just for a short time, but for a person, but he did more. And his legacy will be more. And I was minister myself for 3 or 4 years, but his legacy as a politician will be more important. And
indeed, you don't always need the title, do you? You don't always need the title to have that influence and to be the person that's sort of, as you mentioned, his trips to Belfast and what have you.
When you do have an idea, and you believe firmly and strongly in the idea, and Paddy's political philosophy was bring people together, build bridges, establish communications. And I say it wasn't very popular in the 70s, and we know how things were going in the 80s and all that, but he persevered and he kept at it. And, his idea prevailed at the very end. And then, of course, let us not forget In Donegal, there were 12 or 1,300 men from this county, from both traditions, who lost their lives in the First World War.
Yes.
And Paddy came up with the idea then of the Donegal Book of Honour. It was the first of them. I was presented with one of them. I'm a proud owner of it here. Lots of people from my own parish, neighbours, and so on, who perished there. And he set the agenda. And every county in Ireland now most of them now have published their own Book of Honour, and those who haven't are in the process of doing so. So he was a trailblazer in so many ways.
Indeed.
And it was a great privilege to have known him. And often then he'd be there late at night, and then we'd go out for him. Often he used to go down. There was a little restaurant there outside there, an Indian place, the Taj Mahal. I used to go down there. I'm very conservative when it comes to things like that, but I always joined him, and we had long chats. And it's a pity now. He has his book, of course, the Paddy Hart book. I'm sure his life and times and all that. But he did certainly have the makings of another book. I don't know if he was working on one or not. But he was with us for a long time, and we're also sorry that we have lost probably what I would consider a political giant.
But you're blessed with your memories, and that letter, which really was the beginning of it all for you as well. So he left a lot behind him in more ways than one. Yeah,
when he published his book and all that sort of thing, and I said, I have a letter that you sent me. Yeah, and he said I think he wasn't too well. It's not, but we discussed it. I said, pity you did not give me that letter, and it would be in my book. He said that I was instrumental in getting you in. Said, yeah, and I blame you for it as well.
Indeed.
But we had a. As I said, he was kind of a father figure to me, really. He was a political mentor to me, and even though we were in the same county and all that, there was never a word between us, and there was very often a guest in the Hart household, and anyone who knows that the front door of their house was always open. There was no such thing as ringing bells or anything like that. You just walked right into the kitchen, and Rosaline was there, and a cup of tea and the warm welcome was always there for you. And I will certainly dearly miss Paddy, as I say. I often wouldn't travel to Dublin with him. He travelled with me a few times, but I used to travel to Dublin and stayed, sometimes coming down. So, it's certainly an end of a chapter for me anyway. And
well, thank you very much, Jenny, for coming on and chatting to us.
I'm sad.
Yes, I can imagine.
But I am glad that his ideas that were revolutionary and not accepted by everyone have prevailed, and that we all adhere to Paddy Hart's philosophy today, that you bring people together, you extend the hand of friendship to them, and long may it continue.
Indeed. Thank you very much, as always, and lovely to speak to you, Denny. Unfortunately, in these circumstances, but always nice to speak to you. Another former Fine Gael colleague is politician, Senator Joachim Loughery, who joins us on the programme now. Thank you very much for taking the call.
Morning.
A sad day, but then listening to Dinny McGinley and his tribute and memories of Mr. Hart, it also brings a smile to one's face too.
It is. Now, I haven't heard what has been said previously. Until Paddy's death, if one mentioned the name of Paddy Hart, one thought of the politician. And the moment he died, that changes. You think of Paddy Hart, the husband, the father, the grandfather, probably the great-grandfather, the brother, the granduncle, and so on. All these things become more prevalent now than his role as a politician. And for that reason, I would like to offer my sympathy to Rosaline and to all Paddy's family, and I think in particular to Jimmy. Jimmy hasn't been well for a while, and Jimmy seemed to be the person who would have succeeded Paddy in politics and the person most interested in it. So, to all those, and to his sister and his brother, and to all those who are in that larger family, extended family, I offer my deepest sympathy.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Senator, former Senator Joachim Loughrey. I really do appreciate that. We are going to speak to John McAteer, editor of the Tyrconnell Tribune, just for a broader reflection. But first, I do want to bring in Minister Joe McHugh, the government's current chief whip. Minister McHugh, thank you very much for taking the call. It's a sad day for the party, and as Mr. Loughrey quite rightly pointed out there, first and foremost for friends and family and loved ones of the late Paddy Hart.
Yeah, I think Joachim separated the two, the politician and the family man. So in that same vein, I would like to pass on my sympathy to the Hart family. I spoke early yesterday morning to Paddy Jr. And I know while Paddy was sick for a while, it was still a big shock. So I just want to pass on my sympathy and obviously to thank on behalf of the people of Donegal as well, people from within the Fine Gael party who would have walked the byroads with Paddy. A lot of them still do with me during my campaigns, and they've very, very fond recollections, and they constantly talk about the commitment that he gave, the grassroots politician that he was at a time when clinics had to be done every weekend in different venues throughout the county. Paddy put in a great degree of sacrifice as a person. He had a big family, and obviously politics has its challenges, but at the time he certainly put in the groundwork on behalf of the people of Donegal.
And Minister, while your political paths wouldn't have crossed necessarily, in other words, you didn't sort of serve at the same time, presumably, there were foundation stones in your path laid by Mr. Hart. Yeah,
I mean, look, at a personal level, I would have known Garrett and Emmett through college and through different connections in college before I entered politics. I entered politics in '99. Paddy retired in 1997. But as you correctly pointed out there, a lot of the foundation blocks in terms of the peace process, cross-border cooperation, which became quite trendy in the aftermath of Paddy's time. Paddy acted as spokesperson in Northern Ireland, and he took a lot of risk, and it took a lot of courage to do what he did. He reached out to different communities, which was pioneering at the time, and he paved the way for the peace process that we have today. And whether it was Sunningdale, whether it was the false dawn of the Anglo-Irish Agreement, the Good Friday Agreement in '98 came about because of those different interventions and a lot of the work that Paddy was involved in. So where we are today in terms of the peace process, in terms of Donegal as a county, more open as a county, we continue to strive towards that openness. And just to point out that during Paddy's time, it must have been that mere isolation must have been very difficult in those very dark days when there was a lot of violence, and it must have been a very, very difficult time for him as a politician, and it's something that we should not forget.
Yeah. Okay, listen, Minister, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And again, condolences to you and the Fine Gael family, as well as, of course, principally Paddy Hart's family. John McAteer is editor of the Tyrconnell Tribune and has been listening into that. John, thanks very much for coming on the programme.
Thank you indeed, Greg, on what is indeed a very poignant day for the Hart family and for everybody in Donegal. And like Joe and Joachim, and a wonderful tribute from Denny McGinley, I want to extend on behalf of ourselves in the Tribune and the wider media our sincerest sympathy to his wife Rosalyn, to his family members Mary, Paddy, Anne, Jimmy, Roisin, Ethna, Johnny, Garrett, Emmett, his entire family circle, his brother Don, his sister Margaret Dunn, and the wider Fine Gael family. Paddy Hart's contribution is immeasurable. It has been immense. And, yesterday afternoon, the first two tributes that came into our office came from the Fianna Fáil leader, Michael Martin, and from Pat the Cope. And Pat the Cope had this wonderful finale to his contribution that the family can draw solace and comfort from the life that he led, the works he carried out and the contributions made by him. He left his community, his county and the world a better place through his deeds and words. And in the words of Lord Byron, for the sword outwears its sheath and the soul wears out the breast, and the heart must pause to breathe and love itself have rest. Paddy Hart fought many, many battles, probably 40 election campaigns, 12 general elections, 6 local elections, an EU election, a presidential election, referendums, and a Senate election. And the family history goes back to the 40s. He joined Fine Gael in 1949. His father would have fought 2 local elections in the 50s. And Paddy Hart first came into the council chamber in 1960, and from that until 1999, he made an enormous contribution right across the political divisions, right across the 32 counties of Ireland. He was a most generous and humble man. And one of my own personal recollections of Paddy Hart was that when we were directing and running a Fannin Festival way back in 72 and 73, Paddy Hart came down to the official opening one evening at a time when money was very, very scarce. And he called me aside and he said, "John, how are you fixed for money?" And I said, "Not very well indeed." And he put his hand in his pocket and he handed me £100. A lot of money for a man with a family of 9 trying to educate them. That was the spirit of his generosity, but it was his work at a local level. People will often wonder, how did he become involved in cross-border issues and building bridges? And the bridge in Lufford, I think, is the catalyst that inspired him. Born just right on the bridge in the small town land of Coolatee, being involved in his early days in football. He was according to legend, he was a formidable midfield player for Lufford Celtic and indeed for Strabane United. So that was where his cross-border dimensions were first generated all of those years back.
And if you spend so long, well, all parties will go through peaks and troughs, and Paddy Hart must have been an incredibly strong and stable and influential member of the party here in County Donegal to enjoy, hard-earned, I'm sure, longevity, but to keep things together.
Absolutely, because, he was in the Dáil for 36 years in a very barren period for Fine Gael, probably with some of the best leaders that Ireland never had. During his tenure of office, Fine Gael was only in power for about 6 years and a half out of 36. So it was an uphill battle to keep the flag flying for Fine Gael, to represent the party at a local level, to drive to Dublin, to attend council meetings, and to travel much further. And his initial work in Northern Ireland went unheeded and unheard of, because there were times that he was accused of spending more time in East Belfast talking to the loyalist paramilitary leaders in a bid to try and broker peace, reconciliation, those type of words that were unheard of at the height of the worst period of troubles in the north of Ireland. And on one memorable occasion, as he reflects in his own book, which was written after his retirement, Young Tigers and Mongrel Foxes, he brought representatives of all the military groups, Provisional IRA, Continuity IRA, the Red Hand of Ulster, the UDA, the UVF. He brought them to Port Salon Hotel for a weekend to bang heads together, to talk, and this was the key word, to talk. And to engage in what might be a better way forward. And he was inspired by that from the First World War, and how after 17 million deaths and countless millions missing, that on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in the year of 1918, 2 groups of people got together in a railway carriage, and after 6 hours of negotiations, a ceasefire was declared. And on that same day, a young Donegal man was killed, perhaps one of the last people to be killed in the war. A lad called Joseph McHugh from Durrallach, Conall and Duhry in the Gaeltacht, along with the Guibara, who joined the American Army in Philadelphia. Paddy Hart was inspired by all that. He was inspired by people like Tom Kettle, a former MP and a professor of economics, who joined the Dublin Fusiliers, and he fought in the Battle of Guillemot, who had written a poem to his little daughter Betty that they were fighting neither for flag, nor king, nor emperor, but for a dream born in a herdsman's shed, and for the secret scripture of the poor. And the richness of that vocabulary was something that lived with Paddy Hart, that he fostered and that he fought for a better Ireland, for unity of minds and hearts, and to end political and sectarian divisions. And he will be remembered for many, many things. But long before we had Sunningdale, and as Joe McHugh reflected there, Good Friday Agreement and all that, Paddy Hart took chances to go to Belfast to meet with the representatives, the church people, and the many friends they had made across a lengthy career to try and broker a deal. And it was from those early foundations of people like himself, Glenn Barr, Ivan Cooper, that the seeds of the Good Friday Agreement were actually sown. And that is an immense contribution from a very towering figure in Irish politics and a very powerful influence here in Donegal.
John, thank you very.
He was a personal friend to so many of them, and again, my sincere sympathy to all of the family circle.
Okay, John McAteer, editor of the Tyrconnell Tribune, thank you very much for that. Willie MacArthur, former chief executive of Fruit of the Loom, joins us now from Florida. Thank you for taking the call this morning, Willie.
You're very welcome.
Your reflections on Paddy Hart?
My first reflection is to offer my condolences to Rosaleen and the other members of the Hart family, some of them I know very well. I have very good memories of Paddy as a TD, very helpful to local business all the time he was in the council and in the Dáil. When we had our family company in Buncrana, he was extremely helpful there. And then when we developed our joint venture with Fruit of the Loom, he was always available to help and assist there. And I have very, very good memories of him as a very sincere, witty, humorous man who was a delight to know. And I have very good memories from on that score. I had a lot of dealings with Paddy when I was the chairman of the International Fund for Ireland, and got to know in that context some of the activities that John McAteer has just referred to there, where Paddy did reach out in a very meaningful way long before the term peace process came into vogue, where he did reach across the communities, did a lot of very helpful work. And then he and Glenn Barr in very groundbreaking activity had the idea of developing the Peace Park, Island of Ireland Peace Park and Round Tower at Messine. That all seems very commonplace now, but at the time it was tremendous groundbreaking work, because as a lot of people would know, because of history, really, a lot of Irish families who had people who served in the First World War, all of a sudden those people were forgotten, and coming from two very different traditions, Paddy Hart and Glenn Barr got the idea that these people had a very common heritage in the First World War and should be remembered. And because of all that, they changed people's attitudes and provided a basis for reconciliation over a long period of time, so that now this is quite commonplace. But when they started, it certainly wasn't commonplace, and they started it in very difficult times. And a couple of things that people mightn't know are that the International Fund for Ireland was able to help Paddy and Glenbar in providing a lot of young people from both traditions and from both Northern Ireland and the Republic to go to Messine to help the professionals create the park there and to build the tower. And that process continued over quite a long period. And then the International Peace School was established in Messine, and a lot of young people went there. But what a lot of people probably don't remember, and this is the law of unintended consequences, is that the Peace Park was opened in 1998 by the President of Ireland at the time, Mary McAleese, and the present Queen Elizabeth in England, and the King of the Belgians. But it was at that opening in 1998 that President McAleese first met the Queen. And from that, they developed a very deep friendship. And from that friendship, developed the visit of Queen Elizabeth to the Republic with the very famous events at Dublin Castle, the Garden of Remembrance, the English Market in Cork, Rock of Cashel, and so on, and then the corresponding visit of President McAleese to London, and the subsequent visit of President Higgins. So Paddy and Glenbar had a hand in all of that, even though at the time I don't think they envisaged that all of that would happen. But and again, that's part of what the International Fund for Ireland was able to do, that by creating the space and the architecture for people of goodwill to get together and do things to help what became the peace process, a lot of very good things happened.
Okay, listen, thank you very much, Willie, for that. It's very much appreciated. Thank you for taking the call.
You're very welcome.
Okay. That's Willie MacArthur there, former Chief Executive of Fruit of the Loom.